Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am flying solo for another episode. But as always, we have something exciting. Not just a first-time Disney cruise, but first-time Disney anything. So we are not going to hesitate to jump right in. I would like to welcome our guest this week, Renee. Renee, how are you today?
Hi, doing very well. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thank you for filling out the form and agreeing to come on.
Of course. I've been a big fan of the podcast, and it helped me out a ton as we prepared for our first Disney cruise and Disney anything, as you highlighted. Yeah, so it's great to have a chance to be able to share with others what our experience was like.
Awesome. We appreciate you listening, but let's jump right into that. What made you want to book your first Disney cruise, and what made you choose a Disney cruise as your first Disney travel experience?
Yeah. So I had a few friends who had booked Disney cruises with their families over the years, followed their experiences on Instagram. And as my husband and I were looking to take our kids, I'd say a more substantial family vacation, we've done some, weekend getaways. We have family that lives out of state, so we have a lot of travel that we do for that. We live in Wisconsin, so the travel to Florida is definitely a commitment, whether you do it, by air or by land. And so when we were looking at that and going, okay, we want to take our kids on something pretty remarkable and do a really fun family vacation, the Disney cruise really stood out as being what would be it. And initially my thought wasn't even necessarily a cruise versus the parks, but rather the mode of the cruise being a really good fit potentially for our family. And so something that we share pretty openly in terms of our story is my husband has brain cancer. It's been a whole journey, and his mobility has been impacted by his tumor. And so a cruise ends up being a really outstanding fit because it really allows him to be able to go rest if he needs to rest. There's a lot more opportunities to kind of sit and to kind of take things a little bit more at your own pace compared to if we were doing any type of amusement park, whether that would be Disney or elsewhere. So that was part of what all kind of factored in. And then, I had a friend from grad school who had become a Disney travel agent, and I've been following her stories for quite some time. So she was a natural fit to reach out to and go, hey, I've seen you have a remarkable time with your child on these Disney cruises. I'd love to book one. So we booked almost a year ahead of time for this particular trip on the Wish.
And I believe you mentioned actually that the sailing you did was not the sailing you originally booked.
Yes. Yeah. Due to my husband's treatment, we had to move our cruise twice. So now that I think about it, we might have even booked far ahead of our August sailing that we wound up taking. And it was so easy, frankly, to move our sailing, which granted, we didn't do a guaranteed room. We had a room that we were committed to, so that gave us a lot of flexibility. And we wound up actually saving some money moving it to August compared to initially we had planned to go in February of the same year of 2026. And then we had bumped it to May. His health still wasn't quite where we would feel comfortable going, we're going to everyone will be able to have a really good time. And August wound up being the sweet spot, and it turned out really well for everyone.
Love it. Well, first time booking Disney anything, what kind of cabin did you end up booking for your family?
Yeah, we booked the family veranda. So, and I may not have that completely right in terms of the exact phrasing of the room. Yeah, we were on the 9th floor with a family size stateroom with veranda. So the veranda was really important to us with that first cruise, because we thought it would add that certainly one additional space as a family of 4. It was a deluxe stateroom with veranda. Sorry, that was the word that I was missing there. Yeah, and the size was pretty remarkable. We were pretty amazed when we walked in at actually how much space there was. Now, granted, I used to work in residence life and housing, so it's college dorms. So I'm used to a dorm size room and what that looks like potentially. And so I was really impressed by how it was all set up. Yeah. And so everyone really loved the veranda and just having access to be able to go look out on the ocean whenever. And it wound up being perfect. And we were on the 8th floor midship on the Wish.
Awesome. We will definitely jump back into that. But before we even head back on the ship, what resources did you utilize kind of in your planning process? And then what did you end up booking ahead of time?
So I am someone who loves to research, and this was like my great joy was trying to like reach the ends of the internet to learn everything I could about the Wish before we got on the ship. So certainly this podcast, I listened to every single episode that had the Wish mentioned in it. So spent a lot of time on this podcast, Reddit threads, and actually I found the DCL Reddit thread to be a fairly pleasant corner of the internet. Sometimes with Reddit, you don't quite know where that's going to go, but there was actually some really interesting information there that was super helpful. A couple of friends who had also been on the Wish of just messaging with them and finding out about their experiences. And then also had joined my sailing's Facebook group, which was also really helpful because there were a number of people who had pretty high status with Disney, who had a lot of experience on the cruise line, and they were able to help give some really helpful perspective as well. And then a couple different YouTube channels as well. So that kind of became like a family favorite thing to do leading up to the sailing for like the 3 months beforehand, is we would just pull up YouTube on our family TV and watch cruise videos together. And sometimes it was a deep dive into Castaway Cay. Sometimes it was a focus on Pirate Night. Sometimes it was just the ship overall. But it was really fun to kind of get that lens of what did other people experience. And at least for me, that's the way that I enjoy a vacation. I still felt like I had a lot of surprises and delights along the way, but it helped me to more effectively kind of prepare to make this a really good experience for my family and for myself.
Well, you spend a lot of time viewing other people's firsthand accounts on the Wish, and it is finally time for your family's experience. How did you get to Florida and how did you get to the port?
Yeah, we flew Delta, and then we took advantage of the Hyatt Regency that's located in the Orlando airport, which I don't know that I could recommend that highly enough. It was so easy due to, as I shared, some of my husband's physical limitations. It was a high value for us to have an ease of travel with our luggage. So what was really cool about the Hyatt MCO that you could take advantage of is that when you arrived at baggage claim, you can call them and they will send a bell person down to help get all your luggage for you. So there is an expectation of a minimum tip. I think it's a minimum of $20. Honestly, like our person was so wonderful and so kind, and he had all these great tips about like what to do in the morning with boarding the ship. So we certainly were happy, like more than happy to tip him handsomely for his help and hauling our luggage up to our room. So it was really wonderful that really by the time we landed in MCO until we got off the ship, we didn't have to touch our luggage. And that to me was well worth it. So then we did Disney transportation from the Hyatt MCO to Port Canaveral. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. So that like just made things so easy. And my kids were so amused by like staying in a hotel in an airport. They just thought that was like the funniest, most wonderful thing. And so we had some fun kind of hanging out in pre-security. There's like a great, lobby area. There's a Disney store, which of course my kids wanted to go check out before we got on the cruise. And so we were able to spend some time kind of hanging out there, which they also thought was just like so amusing to them. So I did not fully evaluate how entertaining getting to stay in an airport was going to be for my children, but that was an added benefit.
Love it. How was DCL transportation the morning of your embarkation?
Yeah, so easy. So what I will say is that the Hyatt MCO is clearly what they do there is a well-oiled machine, and it also is busy in the lobby in the morning. However, like that's where I would say, and I wouldn't even call it stress, but that's where like the intensity of sort of like crowd and waiting in line sort of ends for embarkation day in my experience. So we had a bit of a line to wait in. That wasn't bad. It was maybe 10 to 15 minutes where then you show your passport and your documents there at MCO. So you kind of take care of that whole process before you get to the port. And then it becomes really breezy because you just go ahead and you board the coach bus. You get to the port, and then we were able to walk directly onto the ship. So we were boarding group 4. And yeah, I was really impressed by just how quickly we went from get off the bus to getting right onto the ship. And that was exactly what I was hoping for. And it worked out great.
Any thoughts on the port and embarkation experience itself?
Yeah, I know that some folks on our sailing were disappointed that we didn't get to go through the ears, so to speak. So we were in a different, one of the ports to go through, the terminal, so to speak. So I was okay with that. I was just excited to get on the ship. What I loved was that like around every corner, there were cast members there waving to you, greeting you, like building up that excitement to go get on the ship. And I really loved that. Yeah. And then we got to the ship itself.
And what was that experience like embarking on the Disney Wish for your family's first cruise?
Yeah, it was so magical. It really was. Like, as much as I watched so many videos, and that's like a highlight video that you see on TikToks or whatever, is having your name announced. I made a point to go, like, I'm not going to even bring my phone out. I just want to like soak it in and like take a look around. And you see, Cinderella and Prince Charming waving down to you, and then Mickey was over waving as well. And it was just, and it is a breathtaking atrium to walk into on the Wish. And so we were all just really just like amazed. And you kind of just like stand still there for a minute. You're like, oh, wait, we got to keep, moving along here, which no cast member was like, move along, but you knew like we needed to go start making our way onto the ship itself. So,
Well, I don't think we talked too much about your kids yet. Who are they? How old are they?
yeah.
And what was their reaction to embarking on the Wish?
Yeah, so I have Isaac, who's 9, and then I have Cecilia, who she's now 6, but was 5 then. So she was just about to turn 6. And yeah, they both were so amazing. Honestly, like to me, not having done Disney anything, that was like the highlight of the entire trip, beginning from embarkation, was seeing the joy in their eyes and bringing them into this amazing like Disney bubble and really getting to see them just be fully immersed in a world that is all about magic and imagination and just the joy of, being a person, which not to make it sound overly cheesy, but I really think that was what was so wonderful to me and gave me a lot of teary-eyed moments along the way as a mom, was just getting to see them just be fully immersed in just like full joy. And that to me was like the big piece that we walked away with. So that began with embarkation, where I know both my kids thought the chandelier was really amazing. They thought that was so cool. And then even just the experience of the first time going on to a cruise ship. We live near Lake Michigan. We've been on boats, but that's a totally different story than a true cruise ship, which they had never really experienced seeing one up close like this, let alone being on one. And so I think that was really cool as well for them to experience that.
Love it. Well, you've done a lot of research, which leads me to think that you had a plan for this day.
Yes, we did.
Where do you head next?
We did sit down dining first. And perhaps unpopular opinion, I kind of wish we hadn't done sit down dining first. And I'll share why. We got there and the dining itself was great, but my kids were like so anxious to go explore the ship and to like, they wanted, and granted, we wore our swimsuits onto the ship because I knew they were going to want to dive into the pools. And that was initially part of my plan and itinerary for the family, was like, okay, I know we're going to need to sit down to eat something. Let's sit down, do sit down dining, and then we'll make our way on up to deck 11 and go explore the pools. And ideally, I knew that was the primary time to go hit up the Aqua Mouse to make sure that we were able to get in opportunities to do that. My son loves a water slide, loves all of that. And so for us, and the sit down dining, like the food was wonderful. The cast members were wonderful. It was mainly the amount of time it takes with 2 kids who are very excited, where in my view, it would have been a better situation if we had gone ahead and done quick service or had done something like that on deck 11 and then made our way on over to the pool. So that was my only thought, where so many people recommended sit down dining and I could see the value in it. I think that anyone with young, like active kids, it's a good consideration to make, that perhaps navigating the crowds on deck 11 is worth it. And it did seem super popular. Like we had that lunch in Arendelle and it was packed in there with sit down dining. So I think it remains a really popular, option for folks. It was fortunate that we got on the ship when we did, because we were able to basically walk right into Arendelle. And by the time we left, there was a massive line. So I am really glad that in choosing to do that, with being in boarding group 4, it made it very easy to make that happen.
Awesome. Well, then you already mentioned you had to go up and explore a little of the pool decks and enjoy the Aqua Mouse right away. How were those?
Oh, yeah. We had so much fun on the Aqua Mouse. It did break down a couple of times that afternoon. Because actually my son and I went on it. And then my husband was going to go with my son. And unfortunately, it broke down while they were in line. So I knew that could be a possibility with the Aqua Mouse based on, I think, what this podcast has talked about and others. So it is such a cool ride. It is unfortunate that it kind of runs into some of those issues seemingly fairly often during our sailing. But I was glad that we were able to get a ride in on it right away. And it was a really fun way to start the adventure.
Love it. Well, then your staterooms were probably about ready after that. You already kind of
Yeah.
gave your overview of them. Would you say overall from the research you did that the staterooms met or exceeded your expectations?
Yeah, exceeded our expectation. We especially loved the split bathroom. So I think for a family, frankly, like with more than one person, it's a great option to be able to have. So, and it also is just that ability to have a little bit of additional space too, right? It's any opportunity you have where you're not kind of all crowded in the same location. So that was also really helpful. The theme in our room was Tiana, which my daughter absolutely loved. She's a big Tiana fan. And I love that little kind of like extra touch of, Disney magic in the room, and really connected to a specific story and a specific character. It was a lot of fun for us as well.
Did your family find that they spent a lot of time in the stateroom?
I would say, I'm trying to think a good way to put it. My husband, a little bit more, mainly due to some of his needs to rest. So he really liked being able to have access to basically like Disney Plus or the Disney On Demand in the room was really nice. But I would say it was mainly in the evening, especially for my son and I. We didn't spend a lot of time in the stateroom outside of like getting ready for dinner. And I kind of planned our packing accordingly. Okay, daytime outfit, essentially, swimsuit for each day, and then some sort of evening change of clothes to be able to go into. So that really was, I would say, around that like 5 o'clock period, because we did late dining, was our main time when we would go back to the room to kind of change, freshen up, get ready.
Cool. We will definitely circle into dining here in just a minute, but you probably have the most magical part of your sailing coming up here, the muster. How was that?
Yes.
What were kind of your expectations for that experience?
Yeah, so I used to work in residence life and housing, and because of that, working in crisis management, I'm very accustomed to needing to do drills of all sorts and things along those lines. I kind of knew going in like it was necessary, and I really wasn't bothered by it. And frankly, like as someone who does oftentimes think through crisis protocols because of that training that I've had, I appreciated going like we all know exactly where we needed to go. And on our second night, we did have to go to our station. So it was a good thing that we knew about, where it was and just what that looked like. And frankly, like Disney handled it really well. It went really efficiently. I felt like the cast members they had introducing it were also great. And I appreciated that the cast members all seemed to take it very seriously as well, which I think also sets the tone. So they weren't treating it as a like, oh, like, so sorry you have to do this. So I appreciated that because I think it set the tone that there is an element of needing to have safety first and that the cast members take that very seriously.
Let's go ahead and stick with that real quick. What was the situation that led you to have to muster? And what was focusing more on kind of, we practice the muster and in the hopes that you never have to do that or that you never had. What was kind of that like from the guest perspective of like actually having to do that real time?
Yeah. So the situation was they actually initially thought either two people could be overboard or they were bags of trash. And I laugh because the dichotomy between the two is very drastic. And also keeping in mind, like this sailing was maybe a few weeks after the incident on the Dream that happened. And so like it gives me chills like thinking about it because what an unfortunate possible situation it could have been. Long story short, it wound up being bags of debris and trash, but they needed to go out to investigate that because evidently the ship system, when they sense that, it like either senses it as it could be a body or it could be a bag of trash. So it was toward the end of our dining. We were in 1923 that night. And basically we're getting ready to leave when the muster drill was called. Or not the drill, the actual muster station, go to your station was called. So it was very easy for us because 1923 actually also happened to be our station. So we basically just turned around and went back in. Scanning our key cards was super easy, but basically the ship needed to take account for every single cast member and person on the ship. And I was really impressed that frankly we were done with all of that within, it couldn't have been more than 40 minutes. So I thought that was pretty impressive to account for 4,000 guests on the ship. I do believe our ship was 95% full, so just shy of 4,000 people. And then all of the cast members as well. There was sort of a running joke that there was like a family on the 9th floor who they could not locate it. And I only remember it was on the 9th floor because they had to keep announcing their stateroom over and over. And then the names of this family because they were trying to locate them. So initially there was a bit of fear of like, oh my gosh, are these the people that are in the ocean, because at that point in time we didn't know if it was, people or debris. And then eventually those individuals were located. And so it was sort of a funny situation of then it became this like running joke among the entire ship, the rest of the sailing, a very odd team building experience for the entire group. But yeah, it went really smoothly. Like, frankly, while we were just kind of sitting there waiting, we just sort of chatted with the other families that were around us and got a chance to just meet other people. So that was fun, which is an odd thing to say about it, but you're just sitting there and waiting. And just hoping that like everything's turning out okay. And I was really impressed by Disney's communication throughout the whole thing. So we eventually did hear from the captain of the ship where he confirmed it was debris after he had confirmed everyone had been accounted for. And then we all did get onboard credit as well, which I thought was really nice. Like, I had no expectation of that. Like, this is just, it is part of, being part of any type of mass transportation, right? Like, there's going to be things that could happen. But I thought that was a very nice and generous thing that Disney did. So
cool. I appreciate you adding some context to that and what Disney did for you. But moving back into the fun of embarkation, did you go to the sail away party?
So we didn't, because it was raining on the deck. It started to rain when we were there. And then by the time we were trying to make our way from the 11th floor to the atrium, that was not going to happen. And so ultimately, my kids decided that they would rather just go walk the ship and make their way on down to the Oceaneers Club to go have a chance to go check that out. So I was really sad we missed the sailaway party, because it was something that I watched so many videos about and it looked like so much fun. But that's okay. We just needed to save it for another sailing.
Oh, I'm sorry you missed that. But let's go ahead and roll with the kids clubs. Did both of your kids utilize the kids clubs, and what did they think of them? Did they spend a lot of time in there?
Yeah, they both utilized the kids club. They really loved it, like the first day and a half. And then the main complaint my son had, who's a huge Marvel fan, is that the Marvel room of the Oceaneers Club would frequently be closed for character meet and greets and character kind of visits. So that was a bit disappointing to him, because he wanted to spend as much time as possible in the Marvel room. So I think I didn't realize that would be closed off so often. And so in the future, I would have looked at comparing the character schedule to the Oceaneers Club schedule and just helping to make sure that when my son is going there, we're kind of navigating around that. Yeah. And then my daughter overall had a good time as well. Yeah, it did seem like, and I don't know if it's because of how many kids were there. And I know we're not going to talk as much about like future sailings. They had a different experience later when we were on the Dream. So I would say that overall they liked it. And granted, my kids both did daycare growing up. They've done after school programs. My son has done overnight summer camp. So the kids both have a lot of comfort with just like going into a kids club situation. But I think that there was some programming they really liked. And then there was some that I think the aesthetic of the kids club kind of wore off within a couple of days, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, then let's go ahead and make our way around the ship a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the shows. Did you see any of the shows on board?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we only caught one of the shows, which was one of our big disappointments. So it was partially in us being new to sailing Disney, the time it was taking us to kind of get ready for dinner, sometimes post, pool or post being at Castaway Cay. We just it took us more time than I anticipated to try to get the kids ready to go get to the show. So the first night we missed the show. The second night we watched it from our stateroom. And then what was helpful about that was my kids then had a little bit more of a glimpse of what the show would be like. Because I think initially, I don't know that they quite knew what to make of what a Disney show would entail. And I think then they realized oh, this is really cool. This looks like this would be really incredible. So then we did make it to the last show on our fourth night, and it was absolutely incredible. And that was the one that was Aladdin focused with the genie. And my son just thought the genie was so hysterical. So he was like, I want to be the genie. I just want, which I should have known. It's perfect 9-year-old. It's anyone's humor, really. It's a great little stand-up bit, but especially for a 9-year-old, I don't think there's a better bit of humor than the genie. So, and then I was truly blown away. I have someone who I've been fortunate to get to go to Broadway shows, and I love theater. I was a theater kid growing up, so I really enjoyed all of that. And found it so remarkable what they were able to do, and the talent of the cast members was just a massive highlight. And so really, it was such a disappointment for us to go like, oh, I wish we had gone to the other two shows because they were so incredible and so good. So that was probably the main thing that we walked away with actually from the Wish, was going like, oh, we should have prioritized going to the shows. So that was a lesson learned for us.
Got it. Well, let's talk about activities around the ship. What did you and your family get up to fill your days while you were on the Wish?
Yeah. So my daughter did Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, which she absolutely loved. We did like the all-in package of like go pick out the dress and, all of it. So she had an incredible time. She named herself the Princess of Mischief afterwards. And we needed to have a whole like video of her coming down the stairs of the Wish. And she just like ate up being a princess. So that was really fun. And she truly spent the day like waving to people like a princess throughout the ship. And yeah, she just absolutely loved that. My son did the Pirates makeover. He also loved his experience. I will say, if you're planning to do the Pirates makeover, bring some type of makeup wipes or like micellar wipe remover, because that makeup is on there. It is true like stage makeup situation. So luckily we had some of that, because that was a little tricky to eventually get removed, which is great because that meant it really stayed, because he did some swimming even after with his stuff on and it stayed. So they really had a great experience. And I'll also say, like, for the cost, especially for the Pirates makeover, the costume was really amazing. So especially the one that my son picked, he's also kind of used it as like a Hamilton-esque costume as well, in addition to pirate after the fact. So we've actually had really good like use of the costumes at home afterwards. So that's been fun.
Are those experiences that you think you would do again on future sailings?
Yes, it was really like the fairy godmothers. And when it turns into, a pirates scene, and I made the mistake of mentioning like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique when not really a mistake, but I mentioned it when it became the pirate, lair. And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. They're all gone, And so the cast members, the way they play into the entire environment of it is just so fun. Yeah. And as a parent, it's just another one of those examples of like Disney magic that's so special. I never experienced anything Disney growing up. It just wasn't something that fit for my family's vacation style. My husband never did anything Disney growing up. And so admittedly, like there's a little bit for me of going like, oh, I want to give my kids these experiences that I didn't necessarily have. And seeing them really like soak it up and have such a good time was really something that I loved. Something that did make me a little bit sad that I saw a bit was sometimes some of the pressure from families with their children in Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique in terms of like picking a certain princess dress for a photo later on or whatever that is. And I think my encouragement to families would be like, just if you're already paying for this experience, like let them pick the thing that they want to pick. Right? Like, and I guess that's like such a difference in parenting decisions, but I did see a little bit of some of that like pressure happen around like the photos and the everything. And it broke my heart a little bit, because I think the joy should be in the experience of what you're getting to have. And I get it. Like every family wants to have that amazing family photo that you walk away with. But there was some interesting like stage mom like stuff happening there that I was like, ooh, that's not our vibe. And so my encouragement is that like, if you are someone who's going in and going like, I just want to let this be the joy that my kids choose and kind of be with them on their own experience, there's a lot of room to be able to do that and to kind of go into that with very minimal pressure. I also really appreciate the way Bibbidi Bobbidi is set up is that you pick your package before you even go in. So if you are going in and going like, I've already brought the princess dress with me and we're not picking one, you are not going to run into a situation where the cast member is going like, let's look at all the dresses that you're not going to be able to pick. Yes, will it still be noticeable that like other kids are wearing something that they've picked? Sure. But I do think that the way they manage that really stood out to me as a parent of like, oh, that is really nice that if I came in and going like, I want to do the base package, you're going to be able to do that in a way that doesn't create a situation for your child where they feel left out of some of the other options that are there in the boutique.
Awesome. I love that you had positive experiences in both versions of Bibbidi Bobbidi. Bibbidi Bobbidi.
I know.
What other activities did you as a family get up to aboard the ship?
Yeah, so some of it was just like the fun of walking the ship, which I know sounds so simple, but it was really cool to kind of just like walk the floors. And we did participate in a fish extender exchange. And so my kids really had fun delivering those gifts to other families in our exchange. I'm getting a chance to see those portions of the ship. We did stop by the sweet shop a couple of different times. So they had some fun just getting to like soak that in and, pick out their ice cream or their treat or whatever that was that they chose. So we did really enjoy that. We spent a lot of time doing character interactions. So that was probably the like top hit, especially for my son. So ahead of time, he had researched what all characters would likely be on the Wish, and then he drew a picture of each of them for them to sign. So that was really fun. And I think if you're looking for a fun way, if your kids like drawing, it was a really fun way to do an autograph book. And actually, I'm working on getting some of those framed for him because they turned out really well. And the reactions of the characters to those drawings was so much fun. And so, like, one of the examples of that, we had an amazing interaction with Goofy that frankly, like, transformed. I'm now like Goofy's #1 fan. Didn't see that for myself. Here we are. His whole character and persona and the way that cast member brought it to life truly was like chef's kiss remarkable. And so it was Pirates Night when my son met Goofy and he had his, autograph book with his drawing of Goofy. So he shows it to Goofy and Goofy, like, of course, has this over the top reaction seeing this drawing of himself. He goes over, we're up on, I think, like the 4th floor. So he's like going over the railing, showing everyone down below this drawing of him and pointing at it. And then my son has this moment where, of course, he's dressed as a pirate and he goes, walk the plank to Goofy. So Goofy like played into the whole thing, right? Of like, he's pretending to walk the plank, pretending to go overboard. And so we had it was an over 3-minute interaction because I was able to luckily like catch it on video. We did do the photo package. So that was also fun because the photographer took a ton of pictures of that. So I didn't have to like worry about taking pictures. But that, like, the interactions my kids had with the characters was like such an unexpected, beautiful part of our entire sailing. And yes, there was some like waiting in line. It was not bad at all. I talked to other families. They were going like, we don't even bother with character meetings in the parks. We just do them on the ship. And that seemed to be a resounding factor for a number of people. So I think that if you have a high value on meeting the characters, the ship is where it's at to be able to do that. So we did Princess Gathering, which also was like beautifully done. And my daughter had such a good time. Just my daughter did the Princess Gathering, offered it to my son. He didn't want to go meet the princesses, but that was okay. He was off meeting a bunch of other characters. Yeah. And then we spent a lot of time in the pools as well. So my kids really enjoyed just getting to go swim. They were a little disappointed by how shallow the pools are on the Wish, which I knew kind of going in that was one of the elements of the Wish. So they both like love swimming. So they would have liked a little bit deeper water. But outside of that, I mean, we still had a great time being on deck and just having a good time with that.
So your son did a lot of planning for his character interactions.
Yes.
Was there anyone that he had planned to see that he wasn't able to, or vice versa, someone he hadn't planned to see that he was like, oh my gosh, this is like amazing?
Yeah. So there was one interesting piece, and I'm trying to remember, I'm not a big Star Wars person, forgive me. There's one of the characters from Star Wars who actually would not sign an autograph because they're still like hiding from, oh gosh, I try to remember what. I feel so embarrassed. I don't know my son is going to like hear this and be like, Mom, you didn't remember. But because there were a couple of characters who, so to speak, were supposed to be like in hiding, he could meet them, but they wouldn't sign an autograph. And so he was just like absolutely floored by like, I can't believe they wouldn't sign my drawing. But that was that element of like staying in character, right? No matter what. We did have, I think those moments where you just kind of run into characters on the fly were also really fun. And so we did have a really fun interaction with Mickey of just like running into him. We also did a couple of the character dance parties and those were super fun. And they will not sign, they will not like do hugs or anything with that, which my daughter very quickly learned as she tried to like get into Minnie's dance circle and a cast member kindly helped like move her back. And so, yeah, I don't know that there was anyone who we didn't expect to meet. He didn't get a chance to get Jack Sparrow's autograph. And I knew that was one that he really wanted. So that's probably the only one that we missed where he had a drawing and we didn't get a chance to meet them.
Cool. Moving towards some of the adult areas, did you and your husband get to like explore any of the lounges or do anything like the drink tastings?
Yeah, so I did the champagne tasting and my husband did a beer tasting. The champagne tasting was so fun. I met a great group of women who were from the East Coast and we had like a riot. Like we were just having like the time of our lives together. So that was also super fun of just like meeting people, having a great time. By the time you're 4 glasses of champagne in, you're really having a good time. So, and also like I learned a lot as well, which was part of my goal of I've always really enjoyed champagne, didn't know a lot about it in terms of like necessarily what I should be looking for. Certainly I know what is expensive based on what's probably good because it's very expensive, but also what does that mean? So that was really fun to learn a lot there. My husband also really enjoyed the beer tasting. And granted, we come from Milwaukee, which is like the home of breweries and well known for its beer and beer culture. And he had a great time in terms of kind of learning there and just getting to try a variety of different beers. So I would say the drink tastings were to me like well worth it. I went over to the Cove Cafe a number of times. So it was a nice little escape and really easy where like if my husband was hanging out with the kids on the deck, I could easily kind of sneak away for a little bit, go grab a coffee, chat with folks a little bit there, just get a little bit of like quiet and then make my way back over to the deck. So I really liked the location of that. It made it very easy to maneuver around. I did stop in Tiana's Bayou, which was lovely. I actually think I had a non-alcoholic drink when I popped in there. And then I know my husband had stopped in the Hyperspace Lounge. I did regret not being able to make my way in there at some point during the cruise, but 4 nights goes by so fast. I'm really glad we didn't do a 3-night because initially that was something that we looked at and our travel agent was like, you will regret not doing the 4-night. Like, trust me, 3 nights goes by way too fast. And she's absolutely right. Yeah. So those were the main kind of like lounge areas we kind of stopped in at.
Love it. What were like 1 or 2 favorite family or adult spaces aboard the ship?
Yeah, goodness. I would say I really love the Cove Cafe. Like it just was like so heavenly to me. I'm a coffee drinker. I loved like the way they like impressed the designs on there. And then just having like an adults only coffee like cafe space I thought was really, it's so smart and it really is lovely. And then I would say the other part for us as a family was probably just like hanging out on the deck. We really enjoyed deck 11. So that combination of being able to like, oh, my kids like, and I know everyone talks about this, love the soft serve and especially the like all you can eat soft serve. That was like all they could talk about afterwards. So there was really nothing better than, I mean, who doesn't love a moment of like getting to go swimming and then have chicken tenders and just like live your best life, right? Like it's a dream. So yeah, that would probably be the other area that we just really enjoyed as a family.
Love it. Well, I have one more section of the ship I want to discuss before we move into dining. You had mentioned that you had utilized a couple different spa services.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a big spa person. I've had the good fortune of getting to go to some amazing spas across the country. My best friend and I love taking a spa trip together. So I guess I'm coming into this with a lens of some pretty solid experiences. And as perspective for those who've experienced other spas, I've been to Miraval in Tucson. I've been to some pretty remarkable spots. And so I share that as perspective in terms of like what I was kind of looking for going in. I also knew that there would be an element of a sales pitch potentially going in. I work with sales every day, day in and day out in my current job. And so I kind of felt prepared for what that could look like. So my husband and I did a couples massage. The massage itself was wonderful. One weird thing at the end is that like at the end of the massage, they like had us like holding hands across from each other, like put our hands together. I mean, I love my husband. I love holding hands with him. It was a weird way to end the couples massage. So I was like, oh, okay. This was just interesting. So they did kind of then go into like the sales pitch of like, oh, like, do you have any like massage lotions at home? We're like, no, like that's not a thing for us personally. And I was able to pretty easily go like, hey, like I really appreciate it. I know you want to highlight the products. It isn't something that we're interested in today. And they were very like receptive to that. So there was kind of like no further pressure from there. Yeah. And the massage itself was good. And then an interesting thing that I actually was surprised by is that the robes are not very good. The Wish for the spa, that really surprised me at actually how terrible quality that they are. So, and also since we did have Rainforest Room passes, a suggestion that I gave to Disney was that perhaps those with a Rainforest Room pass, having access to a nicer robe as part of that, or even getting the robe package as part of that would have been a really nice touch because they were just like really crummy, kind of like Amazon quality, like really thin, like waffle robes is what I would describe. So I kind of had a different expectation of like a true spa robe, which sounds like so minimal. And honestly, like how lucky am I to have that as like a complaint coming off of this? But I do think that if you're someone who really enjoys a spa and a spa experience, that really surprised me. The other part that surprised me too is that I was expected to bring my own flip-flops into the spa space. I thought I would be provided with like a spa flip-flop or sandal, which I've experienced other places. So that kind of surprised me. And I hadn't initially brought my flip-flops with me. I was just wearing like my normal sandal. So I wound up running back to my stateroom to go get those and kind of doing all that. So that wasn't, I didn't love that. And then I had a facial, which was outstanding. The cast member did an outstanding job. She was wonderful to chat with. That I would definitely do again. Yeah. So again, like the massage was fine, I hate to put it that way, but I could have skipped that and I probably would have just had done a facial instead. And then what I also found was that with the spa being located on deck 5, it isn't easy to get to, which meant that if you do a rainforest room pass for the week, you have to be really intentional about going out of your way to make your way over to where the spa is, versus on other ships where being located, say, on like deck 11, you could more easily pop into there if you're going like, oh, I'm out swimming with the kids. My husband's going to watch the kids for a bit, swim. I can go over into the spa for like 30 minutes, hang out, read a book, make my way out. So especially if you're doing the rainforest room pass, because I did find we didn't get as much utilization of that as I initially pictured going in. So that I would have just kind of thought about a little bit differently because the spa wasn't really close to our stateroom and it wasn't really close to anything else we would regularly go to. But in terms of the actual rainforest room itself, gorgeous space, really enjoyed being able to take advantage of the sauna and the different kind of like shower options. The heated loungers are wonderful. I didn't actually end up using the outdoor space at all, but partially because we sailed in August and it was incredibly hot. And I didn't really feel a need to go like sit out in the heat in that situation. The heated lounger indoors was like perfectly fine for that situation. One other thing that surprised me as well, and again, I did raise this to Disney, was that my first time using the rainforest room, I had taken a shower. I have pretty dry skin and I hadn't brought my skincare products with me from my stateroom. And so I knew I needed to put some lotion on my face. And I had asked, I was like, hey, like I have a facial booked for later in the week. Could I get a sample facial moisturizer to use? I just took a shower. I have really dry skin and I know my skin's going to get like itchy and hurt. And they would not give me a sample of moisturizer, which really surprised me. So, and that to me was also something where I was like, oh, that is not common to other spas I've been to, where you have almost access to these different spa materials where if I really like that moisturizer, there's a high likelihood I'm going to buy it while I'm on the ship. So I was really surprised they didn't do any samples of the products when there's just this high goal of selling them. That to me didn't make a ton of sense. And again, working in sales, I'm like, you're missing out on a huge opportunity here of making your products more accessible. And same thing with like, actually, I love a spa gift shop as well, where I'm like, oh, I'd love to bring a piece of this home with me. And they don't make that very accessible there either in the spa, which also to me seems like a missed opportunity in terms of revenue for Disney. But you know, they know better than I on what's probably profitable for them. But to me, I think that was a big miss of you could have had spa robes there available for people to purchase. Again, some basic like facial moisturizer, facial wash, things that people are going to realize you get to this area, you didn't bring it from your stateroom and you're going to wish that you had it there with you. So yeah, I think some missed opportunities there for Disney.
I actually agree with the robes. I just did spa service on the Destiny and the robe was not good. But I will say one thing I did like was instead of doing the sales pitch, they just gave me a card and said, hey, these are our recommendations, like take it as you will. Yeah. And that was a lot more pleasant than having to listen to, you know, everything that's wrong with my skin and sell me.
Yes. And I think it's super common in terms of spa experiences. And I actually like that because if I decide later, like, oh, I want to buy this, I have the card, right? And yeah, so I'm glad they made that change on the Destiny. That sounds like a positive.
Well, let's go ahead and move into dining. We'll start with your rotational dining. You had late dining. What were your overall thoughts on the restaurants? Did you have any highlight meals or restaurants from rotational dining?
Yeah, so I would say 1923 in terms of dining was really well done. And so I'm gluten intolerant. I have celiac disease. So I'll say like Disney did a remarkable job with every meal in terms of those accommodations. I know my husband had the steak on 1923 and he was really happy with that. But yeah, overall, we had walked away from 1923 just really happy with the space, the meal, all of that was really good. Arendelle, my kids loved the show during the dinner itself. So the whole concept of Anna's wedding, and Elsa's there hosting. And actually, my daughter had a really wonderful interaction with Elsa. And I had prepped my daughter of like, hey, like they're performing, you might just get to wave to Elsa. Like I really tried to level her expectations that like Elsa might not come up and talk to you. And she's dressed, my daughter's dressed in her full Elsa, costume going into this. She is pumped. She is there. She is ready for Anna's wedding. So it was a really delightful surprise to get the level of interaction that we did from Anna, or from Elsa rather, who came up and gave my daughter a big hug and sat there and like held her hands and talked with her about the wedding and how, it was just like, it was like when the tears started for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, I did not expect this at all. And this was beautiful. And the meal itself was good. I would almost like, in terms of like order of like good, better, best, it was like 1923 was the best. I would then rank Arendelle, and then I would then rank our Marvel meal, which I think is pretty consistent with other people's experiences too. It did seem like in Marvel, the technology wasn't quite working. So my son was a bit disappointed about that because he was super pumped for his Marvel meal. But we did have Spider-Man come running through, and we had some amazing interaction there. My son had a chance to kind of riff with Spider-Man about Captain America's shield. My son is a massive Captain America fan. And again, like I don't want to embarrass myself to the other Marvel fans because I only have like a very limited knowledge of the Marvel universe. But yeah, my son and Spider-Man had a very in-depth conversation about Captain America's shield. That was also really amusing. But in terms of the food itself, again, like all of it was good. Like I didn't walk away from any of the meals going like, oh my gosh, like that was concerning, right? Or that wasn't very good. But it was a matter of kind of which restaurants had a little bit of a better experience. In 1923 was definitely that for us.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that, actually. Well, you also had a Palo Brunch for your husband. How was that?
Yeah, well, one, I was super excited to land that on our first, time going on a Disney cruise, because I also had kind of leveled my expectation of like, hey, we might not be able to do this. My husband and I, since when we started dating, like brunch has always been this like fixture for us of one of our favorite things to get to do together. And we don't get to do it as often now with 2 kids. And so it was incredible. Like the chicken parm prepared gluten-free changed my life. No exaggeration. Where I left there going like, oh my gosh, like I need to sail again just to have this chicken parm. Like this was so remarkable. And our host for the brunch was just really wonderful, super sweet. We had a gorgeous view overlooking the ocean of where we were sitting. We were right by the windows. So it was just like, in terms of like adult magic, like true magic for me, just being able to be in this peaceful space. I love that they have an expectation around like elevated dress going in, because it does really feel extra special. So that I really enjoyed too. So I had like my outfit picked out for this like months ahead of time, because I was so excited for this opportunity to like be on the ship, get dressed up with my husband, have a beautiful brunch. Yeah. And I had started out with the seafood appetizer, and it was so good. Yeah, I'll like ahi tuna that they serve. There's a seasoning around it that like I can still like I can taste it right now telling you about it. Like it was so remarkable. I had the celery soup, which was also like it was so incredibly good. My husband had the tomato bisque, which you can't go wrong with either soup. They were really good. I had the eggs Benedict with caviar, which is also delightful. The gluten-free bread with it was like less than exciting, so that was probably like the only downside of that. But again, like did not take away from having caviar. My eggs Benedict was a welcomed addition to our brunch. Yeah, we both had the different like flatbreads. I had a gluten-free one. My husband had one with gluten. And we were like, once we got to the flatbreads, I was like, oh my gosh, like we have chicken parm coming. I know this is supposed to be really good. I am now concerned I'm very full. So I would have maybe taken a slightly different approach. I think my husband and I would have maybe shared a couple of other dishes if we did it again. But honestly, like what a good problem to have. So yeah, Palo Brunch did not disappoint. It exceeded every expectation I had going in.
Love it. Well, we also have some port stops to discuss. First was Nassau. You did not get off the ship, right?
Yes. Yeah, correct. And it was largely due to going, like, we really only have 4 nights. I'd love another full day being on the cruise ship. And I knew that if we stayed on, one, it gave us the ability to do Palo Brunch. So that was when we were able to secure that reservation. And then 2, would just give us a little more time being able to enjoy being in the pools and doing some other things with perhaps a slightly less crowded ship, which was definitely necessarily the case in the situation. So that worked out really well. And my son had his Pirates makeover in the afternoon on that Nassau day. So we were able to kind of enjoy and take advantage of some things. So it wasn't necessarily for any reason other than going, it's a pretty short sailing. And if we want to do some of the special things we want to do without having any castaway status yet at that point in time, that was the time to be able to do it.
Well, actually, before I take us into Castaway, then let's talk about Pirate Night a little bit. Did you get to do some of the later night activities and the fireworks with that?
Yes. Yeah. It honestly like blew me away. I wouldn't say I was a big like matey like pirate person going into Pirate Night, but it made me someone who was like, this is so fun. Like all these people dressed up. My kids got so into it. The shows, again, were remarkable. Like did not expect to see someone like, coming on, seeing Jack Sparrow, come on down from the top of the ship was really cool. My kids love the fireworks at sea. I love the fireworks at sea. Who am I kidding? Like, not just them. I thought that was fantastic. So we did both of the pirate themed shows. So there's the one that's earlier in the evening at like 7:30. That's Mickey and Minnie focused, super cute. We had a great time watching that. And then we went to the late night show as well. That then turns into a little bit of like a dance party as well at the end, which is super fun. And my kids love a dance party moment. Yeah, so we had a great time at those shows. That was well worth it. And yeah, the energy of the ship was something really unexpected that was cool too. It was just the way the ship kind of transforms and the way the energy sort of shifts with everyone getting excited for that. And certainly if you don't want to dress up as a pirate, no big deal. So I think if people are not into it, you're not going to feel left out not doing it. And also, it ends up working out. Yeah, it wound up being a great experience.
Awesome. Well, now we will move into Castaway. Tell us about your day at Castaway.
Yeah. So it was incredibly hot that day, which we knew going into an August sailing. And granted, we are from the north. We are not well accustomed and well adjusted to heat. So that was probably like one part that was a little bit tricky where we didn't navigate the tram system as well as we probably could have and had avoided as much walking as we did. So we did do a ton of walking to eventually then get to a good spot at the ocean. I should have not booked. I think I had done like a paddleboard rental and I had rented like 3 inner tubes. Like there was too much renting of stuff. I should not have done that. We could have just gone and just enjoyed it and like did not need to have a single other thing booked. We did also have a glass bottom boat tour booked, which my kids really love. They still talk about today. And I mainly booked it because in terms of excursions, it was a good option where I knew for my husband's mobility, it would work out really well. Because again, it was one where it's like, it's seated, you could just enjoy being out on the boat. So no regrets doing it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to do it again. Like it was definitely like a one and done excursion to me. So yeah, I think my big takeaway for Castaway Cay is like you can go there without having to rent a single thing and you will still have a remarkable time. So we went to Castaway a little bit later in the morning. So I don't think we left the ship until closer to like 9:45. So we kind of and that was intentional of like, I let that first rush of people getting out to the island go, and then we could kind of make our way out and have a little bit more of a relaxed morning. My kids also had never played in the ocean before, so they were a little bit taken aback by the saltwater. So that sort of had a bit of an impact on how much time they wanted to spend in the ocean. So we got a good amount of time, but also the swallowing of saltwater and the getting used to that was a little bit of an adjustment for them. So we had lunch on the island, and then we went to go do our boat tour. And then really post-boat tour, you end up being closer back to the ship. So it just made sense to make our way back to the ship post-boat tour. So I didn't feel like we got to take advantage of as much as we would have liked to have on Castaway. So it was another one where I was like, oh, I would take a different strategy next time to how we approach the beach day and really let it be a little bit more lax and approach it that way.
With all that said, how do you feel Castaway met up to your expectations for the island?
Yeah, I would say, I think in terms of my expectations, anything that didn't go as well as I would have liked that day really had more to do with us trying to plan to do too much on what was a very hot day than it did with the island itself, if that makes sense. So it's like trying to separate out what was more within our own control versus what was really within Disney's control and the island itself. So it was lovely. It was beautiful. But I'd say we didn't leave that part going like, oh, this was the highlight of our trip. So Castaway definitely fell lower on the list for us, the time that we spent. And honestly, with the way that it went, I think if I did another August sailing, I would almost just as well. And if the island was Castaway, I would likely stay on the ship and just enjoy the ship, which I know is maybe like an unpopular opinion. But I think, again, it was based on just how hot it was. And I think the overall vibe and experience. A sidebar, now that I've experienced Lookout Key, which I loved substantially more, that gave me a whole new perspective to Castaway. So yeah, I think I have a whole other like perspective on it now. Yeah, so that's my kind of take on that. And partially because we chose the Wish to go travel on the Wish and to be on the ship and experience the cruise ship. So for us, that was a big value in this particular vacation as compared to the stops being a primary. So like as an example, I've started to research, like, do we want to do a Mediterranean cruise? Do we want to do Alaska? I think my view on the ports and the stops would be totally different if that was the type of cruise we were taking compared to these 4-night cruises where really for us at least, we're there to go enjoy the ship is the primary goal of why we're there.
And that is what is great about cruising is you can choose your own adventure and you can certainly choose to stay on the ship. And actually, the Castaway Day is one of the best days to stay on the ship because that is where the ship is the most empty.
Yes.
Well, sadly, though, all sailings must come to an end.
Yeah.
What was your disembarkation process like and how did you head back home to Milwaukee?
Yeah, so disembarkation went very smoothly, although I will say my son, beginning like the night we were going to leave, began to cry, was very emotional about leaving the ship and for the vacation ending, which also made that morning incredibly difficult because both my kids were very emotional about this incredible vacation that we've been preparing for and planning. It's all come to an end. Initially, so I get to us getting off the ship and then where our plans kind of shifted. So we opted to rent a car because our flight wasn't until 6 p.m. So we wanted to have the flexibility to kind of go where we wanted to go leading up to flying back out of Orlando. So that's where then us having luggage again comes back into play. Something that was super helpful is that there are kind of folks there to assist with luggage who we had tipped, who could help to at least like gather your luggage, put it onto a cart, help you to kind of roll it on out as you go through customs, which was super breezy. Like it was incredibly easy to do that. And then we had quite a line to wait to get the shuttle to go get our rental car. So my husband left to go get on the shuttle, go get the rental car, bring the rental car back. And I just stayed with the bags and with one of my kids, one of the other kids insisted on wanting to go see the rental car place. Great. So like Enterprise is going to be fascinating to go see. Initially, we had planned to go do the space station afterwards. But based on how tired and cranky my children were, I was like, I am not spending upwards of another $300 for entrance to go see the NASA space station. If this is currently the energy that they are bringing, this is not going to be a good idea. So I'm glad I hadn't purchased tickets ahead of time. And so we kind of quickly pivoted. One thing as well that we had to go do was that we brought home substantially more than we planned. So we had to go stop at a TJ Maxx to go buy another piece of luggage to help take our stuff home, which sadly, it's not the first time I've had to do that on a trip. So that's a me issue. So we stopped, we did that. We just stopped to grab some fast food for the kids in terms of like a later lunch because they didn't eat very much at breakfast. And so then I start driving toward the airport. My kids fall asleep in the car and I'm like, oh my gosh, we still have hours before we fly out. What's the plan? And so we ultimately decided to instead go to Disney Springs. And so that was kind of fun because my kids like woke up in the car and were like, guess what? Like we got one last little bit of Disney magic left here. We are going to Disney Springs. Let's go enjoy doing a little bit of shopping and still being a little bit in the Disney bubble before getting back on the plane and heading home. So that wound up being a really good option for us. And granted, like I hadn't planned it that way, but it turned out really well in terms of working out. So we had some fun doing some shopping and exploring there. And then we made our way back to MCO and utilized the Delta Lounge for a little while before we flew back home to Milwaukee. Yeah, so that wound up being pretty easy.
Love it. Well, I have a couple more questions about your sailing before we take it out of here. First off, 4 nights, enough time? Not enough time?
Oh my gosh, I think Not enough time. I mean, happily, like a 4-night cruise is better than no cruise at all. Certainly, it works out well when you're thinking about vacation time and trying to sometimes maximize that. I think the 4 nights end up being a great fit for a lot of reasons. But for the next cruise we're looking at, I'm definitely looking at 7-night sailings.
Awesome. So, what is something you wish you knew before the sailing that you know now?
Oh, goodness. That is a really good question. I think I wish I knew one. I wish I had spent a little more time plotting out where to situate ourselves for some of the onboard shows, meaning like for Pirate Night and fireworks. I didn't go in with as much of a clear plan of how far in advance should we arrive for a good spot. Where are the best places to sit? That part just hadn't quite soaked in for me. I know I had seen videos and heard people talk about it, but I didn't really go in with as clear of a plan. Wish I'd known that. I wish I had known that, frankly, you could go enjoy Castaway Cay without doing a bunch of rentals and things. I don't know why I was so like fixated on that. But, and especially something I felt like people hadn't talked about is that the tubes that you get, they are not appropriately child sized. So I should have kind of figured that out, but I did not know that at all. They're really more appropriate for, I would say, like teens and adults. Because even for my 9-year-old, it was a bit difficult for him to get up on it. It was easy for him to like float away. So at a couple of moments where I had to go like swim after him, help bring him in. That was a little bit of a mess. So I wish I had known that really, like, while you could rent tubes for kids, it's so not worth it. Do not spend your money on that.
Awesome. Was there anything you missed out on that is a must do for next time?
The shows. I know I'd highlighted that earlier, but yeah, I wish we had made it to all 3 shows because they were just so well done. So yeah, that was the big thing that we walked away with, really wishing we had kept as a top priority to go to.
Did you utilize the photo package?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. Like you pay ahead of, or you secure it ahead of time, and it was the unlimited photos. Well worth it for us. We had, I think, close to 200 photos. So I felt like, that almost ends up being like $1 a photo. I honestly looked at it as going like, okay, this will be our family Christmas photo. In all likelihood, if I booked a photo package at home with a photographer, that's going to run me anywhere from $250 to $350 for probably 10 photos for a sitting. So in my view, I was like, okay, our intention with this is that if we walk away with at least one good family photo I can use for a Christmas card, well worth it. So, and we did. So, and then some, like what, not having to worry about getting out my phone at all to take photos and knowing that they would not be nearly as good of quality as what the photographers would take was well worth it to me.
Love it. Well, did you have any notable cast interactions you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, so there was the one with Goofy that I had highlighted earlier. That was just like so wonderful. We also had, I'll get outside of characters in just a moment as well, but we did also have a notable interaction with T'Challa from Black Panther, and that was so beautiful, wonderfully done. The way that the characters are able to suss out pretty quickly when kids are fans, I think is really remarkable. And so he very quickly picked up on my son's love of Captain America and Marvel and kind of putting all that together. And he began giving him this like quiz on Captain America, which my son was like living for, of like, yes, like I am ready for the Captain America quiz. And so then he supposedly like passed and he did this like special like handshake with him and this whole, like it was just so incredible. I would say our stateroom host, oh my goodness, like just a wonderful human being. They do the most work. I find it remarkable when any of the cast members sleep because they seem to be there and present all the time, as well as noticing that I don't think I had fully realized till I sailed that most of your rotational dining staff who are their cast members, they're also out working on Castaway Cay and they're also working in the quick service area. And I think about that grind day in and day out. That is like remarkable work, and to continue to do it in a way that you're still extending hospitality, and they do it in such a way where they're like, you're on vacation. Like the number of times that I had cast members remind me of like, don't worry about that, like you're on vacation, was such a relief as a parent because you're so used to being the one who does have to manage everything and hold it all together and make sure everyone's got what they need. And those moments of going like, no, like I'll take, like down to like super simple of like when I went to Tiana's Bayou, my daughter was with me. We got in a drink for her. She was struggling with opening up her straw. I was like just starting to reach in to do it. And the bartender was like, no, like you're on vacation. I've got this. Like opening up my daughter's straw wrapper for her was just like so lovely. And so, yeah, all those moments that they really look for to help make your day special was just, it truly left us with this feeling of, oh my gosh, Mickey, take all of our money. This was remarkable.
Well, that brings me into my last question for you. And spoiler, you've actually just returned from your sailing. But what is next for you and your family?
Yeah. So we did book a next sailing on the Dream. We did a very maritime cruise that we just got off of. It went just before Thanksgiving. So it happened that our kids' school schedule was off the entire week of Thanksgiving. So once we saw that, September, Disney was running the incredible deal on guaranteed rooms. So we took advantage of a guaranteed room, and that's probably a story for another podcast. So we do have our placeholder for another cruise. And so right now we're looking at doing a 7-night of potentially doing Halloween on the high seas in October. There's a good 7-night that we're looking at, and looking at the Destiny in particular. So, myself, my kids have seen so much shared about the Destiny, and I love a Disney villain. I think a lot of us who love villains are like, yes, like this is our ship. And so I think that entire just theming of that is going to be really incredible. So that's what I have my eye on next, is likely a 7-night, ideally on the Destiny. And so we're looking at some sailings along those lines, or potentially another very maritime cruise. Yeah, it was just absolutely magical. But honestly, I'll go for any time we can make it work on our schedule is what I'm happy to book a next cruise.
Yeah, if you love villains and your son loves Marvel, the Destiny is definitely an excellent choice for
Perfect.
you and your family. And we hope when you come back from any of those future sailings, you choose to come back on and share that with our listeners.
Yes, I'd love that.
Well, Renee, thank you so much again for coming on and sharing you and your family's first Disney cruise.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. And yeah, it's been a remarkable experience.
Well, thank you again so much for coming on. But you can follow Christy at Pack Your Pixie Dust, or utilize her travel services by clicking the Book with Christy link below. You can follow myself at MouseGen on Instagram and YouTube. And you can follow the podcast at DCL Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, or find more information at dclpodcast.com. But that is going to do it for the show. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.